The picture you see in front of you is a dead body on an autopsy table. Excuse me. And normally when an autopsy is performed, you want to find out the cause of death. And that's what my attempt here is going to be. Most Republicans believe that justice was done via the results of this past election, while most Democrats believe a crime was committed. Honestly, I'm in both camps. I'm making this video as an attempt to take a forensic look at the justice or criminality of what just happened. In order to do that, I believe we have to go back to 2008 and compare it to 2016. In 2008, as in 2016, the people had a certain mood. More often than not, unless things are going great, people always feel the country is going in the wrong direction. Now, obviously, in 2008, with the economy tanking, the people knew that the country was going in the wrong direction. They also knew that they were tired of all the wars that were going on in the Middle East that we were involved in. In 2016, people were still tired of all of the conflict overseas, even though it had been taken down dramatically, but it appeared that we were going to get re-involved, if I can use that phrase. But a large segment of the population felt that although the economy had stabilized and improved a little, the improvement was not touching them. This was particularly evident in the Rust Belt states from Pennsylvania all the way up through Wisconsin. Now, it is true that on the left coast and the right coast, things were going pretty well for the most part. The California economy has improved. The New York or East Coast economies from New York heading south pretty much have improved as long as you're staying along the I-95 corridor. The economy in Texas has improved. As a matter of fact, unemployment here is so low that they're offering hiring bonuses by a lot of private companies. But back in 2008, things were miserable. Now, another thing that we needed to look at was in 2008, Hillary Clinton felt entitled to the presidency just as she felt entitled to the presidency in 2016. That attitude was one of her downfalls. In 2008, both parties put up an unacceptable candidate. McCain was unacceptable because he was following behind Bush, and people, for the most part, weren't big fans of George Bush. And in 2016, well, let me back up. 2008, Obama was considered not to be an acceptable candidate for obvious reasons, which I will state. He was a black guy, okay? And it appeared that the country wasn't ready to elect a black man into the office of presidency. Now, in 2016, We have Hillary Clinton, who had tons of negatives regarding her. And we had Donald Trump, who had tons of negatives regarding him. So again, 2008, both parties put up unacceptable candidates. 2016, both parties put up unacceptable candidates. Both in 2008 and 2016, the winner of both of those elections concentrated on the forgotten or hurting people, while the loser was more establishment-based. The winner in both years was considered an outsider. Obama was considered an outsider, and now Donald Trump is considered the ultimate outsider. The difference, or similarity, between the two was that each had the backing of untapped or undertapped groups. In 2008, it was minorities and millennials that powered Obama to his victory. In 2016, it was the white blue-collar workers and minorities. Now, before you start laughing, you need to look at the results in the 2016 election. Black people historically voted at approximately 85% for the Democrats prior to 2008. Hispanics historically voted at about 65% for the Democrats. When Obama won, he got the African American community rates up to 93%. That's an 8% jump. The Hispanics had their level of support for the Democrats increased from the 95 percentage point that I noted earlier to 97%. You will note that in the 2016 election, Clinton's rates went down to the historic rates. The black vote went down from 93% to 87%, and the Hispanic rate went down from the 67% to the 65%. Even with all Donald Trump's racist rhetoric, she lost support from the minorities. Why is that? That's a question that has yet to be answered, but I hope to at least partially answer it in this autopsy. Donald Trump received a higher percentage of all the white voters with the same voting totals as McCain and Romney, i.e., Donald Trump got approximately 59 million votes in his victory, while Romney and McCain got also approximately 59 million votes. Each of them, Romney and McCain, lost. Donald Trump won with the same numbers. Hillary Clinton received 10 million less votes than Obama. So what does that tell you? One, it tells you that a lot of people stayed home. Now, my understanding is that Gary Johnson got about 4 million votes. So that leaves 6 million voters that did not cast a vote in the 2016 election. My conclusion about this initial portion of it is that 2016 was 2008 all over again, except instead of Barack Obama, it was Donald Trump in the underdog or outsider role. Now let's talk about the contributing factors. We need to start with President Obama. Barack Hussein Obama was not an aggressive president. He had control of Congress for 2 years, and the only major domestic program he achieved was the ACA. And he didn't do what he should have done when he got that pushed through. What he should have done was gone directly to a single payer. Single payer would have insured everyone, single payer would have insured everyone. And the 2016 massive rate increases would have been a non-issue because there wouldn't have been any. Let's talk about what Obama didn't do. Obama didn't tackle immigration reform. He didn't tackle criminal justice reform, and he didn't address the concerns of minorities and the middle class or millennials. Now, he got a huge pass from the African American community for all 8 of his years. But he did get pushback from the Hispanic community because he was supposed to tackle immigration reform during those first 4 years, and he didn't. What he did at the beginning of his second term was that he pushed for the DREAM Act and used executive orders for DACA and DAPA, and he reduced deportations. He also covered himself by pushing for gay rights and other social programs that were okay with the majority of the populace. He, however, ignored the plight of black people for the most part. Everything he did either benefited all groups or groups other than black people. As an illustration of that, I note that the amount of loans given out by the SBA during his 8-year presidency, only approximately 1% of $30 billion went to the African American community. I also note that the percentage of the African American community that, continue to rise as far as the prison population is concerned. Sentencing disparities continued to widen, and people just felt like the judicial system was rigged against us. I also note that black unemployment continued to significantly lag behind white unemployment, and it still does, as does the Hispanic rates. Black crime rates as a percentage are higher than other communities, and that is fully a function of economics. And the Hispanic community experiences the same higher percentages as far as crime is concerned. There's a common phrase, or common as far as I'm concerned, that you don't see major crime statistics coming out of communities that have average credit scores of 700, i.e., people are working, making a decent living, and able to afford, some of the niceties of life. One other significant area that I want to stress is voter suppression. Barack Obama ignored this altogether. The problem in 2008 and 2012 was camouflaged primarily by the black community's ability to overcome this problem through their own efforts, i.e., standing in line for hours and hours and hours on end at a shrinking number of polling places. This reared its ugly head this particular year, as illustrated by the actions taken by various states, including but not limited to North Carolina, Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Kansas, Arizona, Georgia, and Florida. These are all states. Let me take that back. The majority of these states, the ones that were located either in the South or just above the South, they all had one major area that they shared, and that is fairly decent amounts of African Americans living within the states or Hispanics living within the states. Now, there are a lot more examples that I can illustrate regarding Obama's failure to deal even-handedly with the African American community, but I'm going to try to keep this video down to under 40 minutes if I can, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But I will make one other notation regarding the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice required that all police agencies provide certain reporting, specifically in the killing of people. That particular policy was not enforced. There are no statistics about police shootings and killings around the country. The Department of Justice could have weighed in heavily in order for this particular requirement to be enforced. Now, this requirement goes all the way back to the 1994 crime bill. But for some reason, the Department of Justice never chose to enforce this. But it's funny that they chose to go overboard in their enforcement of the rights for the LGBT communities, specifically in what they did as far as threats made to North Carolina and to Kentucky, where they actually went in and arrested a woman for failing to provide marriage licenses to gay and lesbian applicants. My conclusion regarding Obama is that Obama's hidden lack of aggressiveness and hidden weaknesses contributed to this loss. If Obama had done what most Republicans do, which is come in, kick ass, and take names when they have the advantage, things would have been a lot further along than they are right now. And then when he lost control of the Congress in 2010, they had already gone on record that they were going to do everything they could in order to make him a one-term president. And for some stupid reason, he didn't believe him. Now, let's talk about Hillary Clinton. And I'm going to break this up into Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign. Hillary Clinton had so many flaws that it is incredible that she even ran. Most of the flaws that were significant occurred from 2008 to 2016. Her record, like Trump's prior to 2008, should have been but wasn't discounted, while Donald Trump's history was. She knew she was going to run for president in 2006 by not creating a complete firewall between the Department of State and the Clinton Foundation. Optics are important, and the optics here were extremely bad. Money that was flowing to the Clintons was obscene, to say the least. Not only were they not proactive in dealing with the relationship between the Department of State and the Clinton Foundation, they were badly reactive to it. To be honest, they lied both to Barack Obama and Congress about the transparency of the foundation and its interaction, overt or covert, with the Department of Justice. Now, the Republicans made a big deal about Benghazi, but as far as I'm concerned, that was just a witch hunt. But that alone should have told Clinton that every rock was going to be looked under, which leads to the infamous private server. That she even used a private, unsecured server for any government business was asinine, if not criminal. She further compounded the problem by lying for 6 months about it, along with deleting 33,000 emails. That was just another demonstration of the lack of transparency and untrustworthiness. Those two things turned into an Achilles heel that never went away. They were discussed up to and including the last 2 days of the general election. Another problem she had was paid speeches, which should have been a huge red flag. She was pandering to every group that the American people hated and was saying exactly the opposite to them that she was saying in public. Her public views on trade, the various pipelines, her hawkishness on the Middle East situation, and her right-wing views on social issues ran counter to not only her base, but public sentiment as well. For the reasons I've cited above alone, and there are more, obviously, she should have withdrawn from the election. As soon as this stuff started popping, she should have said, for the good of the country, I am withdrawing. But her ego wouldn't allow her to do it. All right, let's go to the Clinton campaign. There's quite a bit here. The bottom line is her campaign sucked. Number one, their analysis of what a winning campaign would be was totally faulty. They had no message to attract voters. They fought the battle on their opponent's turf, i.e. getting down into the mud and slinging huge negatives. They had no plan to counter her negatives. They were totally ineffective in attacking Trump in his areas of vulnerability. They were overconfident until the end. They walked away from the Obama coalition, which was a winning coalition, and instead tried to form a new coalition that included Republican women, and that was a loser. They failed to realize the number one thing in the majority of elections. It's the economy, stupid. People will go with you as long as it benefits their pocketbooks. And when it doesn't benefit their pocketbooks, everything is going in the toilet. The Clinton campaign's polling models were skewed the wrong way. They ignored all polls that didn't fit their conclusions, which is the ultimate hubris. They had no worst case scenario action plan. They didn't take into account state polls, or at least I don't think they did. And they also didn't take into account enthusiasm and potential turnout. If they had just looked at potential turnout, they would have realized that they should have poured money into turning out the Black and Hispanic vote, their Black and Hispanic vote. But as usual, they waited until the last 2 weeks of the election to start putting money into organizations that specialized in turning out minority voters. That was another major loser. They were told months and months and months ago that they needed to get money into the Black community organizers, particularly in North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Georgia is just a quandary as far as I'm concerned. With the huge African American population in the state of Georgia, it was utter stupidity not to get in there to try to pump up the Black vote in Georgia. It was also utter stupidity to ignore all of the voter suppression efforts in the states that I mentioned previously, particularly in North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Ohio. If they had just taken 2 out of the 3 of those states, Hillary Clinton would be the president-elect today. Now, they can't say that they were unaware of it because the North Carolina situation was all over the news everywhere. And if their campaign wasn't aware of that, they should have been fired immediately. Now, I don't have the same resources that they do, but I knew what was going on in North Carolina. I knew what was going on in Georgia. I knew what was going on in Ohio. I knew what was going on in Pennsylvania. I also knew what was going on in Wisconsin. So if I knew it, why didn't they? And if they knew that suppression was going on, why didn't they pour money into those areas in order to try to offset the suppression? That absolutely made no sense. Now, as far as the Hispanic vote is concerned, we heard all of this, the news about the huge rise of the Hispanic vote in states like Nevada, which she did win, Texas, Florida, and I believe there was a big push in, I want to say Ohio, but I'm not sure. But let's just concentrate on those 3. Again, she was successful in Nevada, and that had more to do with the Hispanics pissed off at Trump for him screwing with them in the wages he was paying in his hotel in Nevada. In Arizona, there was a big push to register Hispanics, and the fact that Sheriff Joe Arpaio was running and they wanted to get him out, that was a major help. They could have done a lot more in Arizona than what they did. Now, Florida, in my opinion, they took for granted. You had the Cubans who primarily vote Republican, but they or a shrinking demographic in Florida, and you had a large rising demographic of Puerto Ricans in Florida. Where was the outreach? They should have been chasing those people down for months and months, okay? But they didn't. Translation, the amount of Hispanic voters that voted for Clinton fell to its historic levels. Now, they could have countered that very easily. And again, this is Clinton's fault. She picked a milquetoast vice presidential candidate. She would have gotten over, in my opinion, if she had placed either an African American on her ticket or a Hispanic person on her ticket. One particular person comes to mind, Julian Castro. This is an up-and-coming Hispanic in the Democratic Party out of the state of Texas. Hispanics, to a man in the state of Florida, voted overwhelmingly to return a do-nothing, never-show-up Cuban by the name of Marco Rubio. They were brand loyal. I believe that she would have sucked in a tremendous number of Hispanics, again, by putting Julian Castro or any other good-looking, younger Hispanic on her ticket. She didn't do that. But let's flip over. The millennials. She alienated the millennials. She could have brought at least some, if not a lot, of the millennials into the fold if she had picked a person like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. That might have shored up her support with millennials. Nope, she didn't do that. She decided to fall back to the standard vanilla Democratic vice presidential choice of Tim Kaine. When she did that, she turned off a lot of millennials. And she was never able to recover. Now remember, the Clinton campaign knew that their enthusiasm levels just weren't there for them, i.e. with the millennials, African Americans, and other minorities. They believed that they were going to make that up with the support of women, particularly Republican women. That never happened. And they really didn't start investing in getting their base out to vote until it was too late. Now, the polls were wrong, but they were right in some cases. Where were they right? They were right when they polled numbers that showed that Clinton never got above 50% in the battleground states. That should have been a giant danger sign. Clinton's numbers were running between 44 and 46% in the battleground states. Trump's numbers were running anywhere from 38 to 44%. In solid blue states, that should have set the Clinton campaign's hair on fire. My conclusion? The Clinton campaign was inept. All right, let's talk about other factors. Let's start with the DNC. What the hell did they do? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or any other person that was in any way affiliated with anyone running, should not have been in charge. And the proof of that was people jumping off of the DNC executive committee. The DNC corrupted the process in Hillary Clinton's favor. That was clear from the beginning. Their job was to be fair and balanced, a decent arbiter, but they just weren't. It came to a head finally when they had to kick Debbie Wasserman Schultz off of the executive committee, but by that point the damage was done. Another thing, superdelegates. Plain and simple, they needed to go. End of story. Superdelegates are tools that favor insiders and is really a very non-democratic feature of the system. Anytime an insider gets a 200 plus superdelegate lead before they even announce that they're running, you know damn well something is wrong. Another thing that needed to be looked at was the lack of viable candidates. And that particular feature speaks for itself. Elizabeth Warren should have run. She would have kicked Clinton's ass, plain and simple, and she might have become the next president of the United States, but she bailed. And even worse than that, she didn't step up to the plate and support Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders has to accept his piece of the blame pie as well. When he decided to say, forget the damn emails, I said, forget the damn emails, my ass. He gave her a pass on her biggest weakness. And we knew damn well that the Republicans were going to jump all over it. So he should have jumped in there and nailed her on her biggest weakness so that we could have gotten hopefully some of it, if not a lot of it, as far as the attack on her with the emails out of the way, but he didn't do it. He also didn't run a complete campaign. Not only was he at a huge deficit with the superdelegates, but he ceded to her all of the Southern delegates for the most part, which was another 200 delegates. How the hell do you win a primary by giving up 450 delegates, which is approximately 25% of the needed figure? You can't do that. Now, the superdelegates weren't his fault, but ceding the southern states as far as the delegates coming out of there, those absolutely were his fault. And I fall back to the belief that Bernie didn't think that he was going to go anywhere. And that's on him and on us, but more so on him. Here's another big one. Her husband, Bill Clinton. Now, we know all the baggage that he has, but Bill is a politician's politician. So can you please tell me what idiot poisons the well that they have to drink from? When Bill Clinton met with Loretta Lynch while his wife was under FBI investigation, he effectively removed a potential firewall and placed James Comey in position to screw his wife, which he did. Okay? Let's jump to the evangelicals. The evangelicals, for all of their higher moral calling, They backed an immoral bigot. So I don't want to hear crap about us. If they truly had that holier than thou attitude, they would have walked away from Trump. I didn't say that they had to support Clinton, but they damn sure should have walked away from Trump. The media played a big role in this. Donald Trump got $2 billion worth of free media. Now, the other candidates in the primary could have gotten a bunch of free media, but they chose not to get on mainstream media like Donald Trump did. Donald Trump realized that while he was running in the primaries, any coverage was good coverage, especially when he didn't have to pay for it. The other idiots in the mainstream, in the primaries, didn't realize that, and if they did, they damn sure didn't take advantage of it. Finally, the people. We people are part of the problem. And there's nothing that can be done about this part of the problem. Why do I say that? Because elections are not analytical. Elections are emotional. And when you appeal to the emotions of the people and you find that sweet spot, there's nothing that anybody can do to move the people away from something that they are emotionally tied to. You can point out all of the facts that you want, but when emotions get involved, it's game over. So in conclusion, the Hillary Clinton candidacy was DOA on arrival. She should have never run, especially given all of the negatives that she had, but her feeling of entitlement, the fact that she ignored a significant portion of the voting electorate, contributed to the loss that she just suffered. Now, I know there is a bunch of other stuff that I could have kicked in here, but I believe that this video is too long already, so I'm going to shut it down right here.